I invite everyone now in this moment to just take a nice, deep, cleansing breath in. Hold it for a minute, and then as you release the breath, release all that no longer serves you. Take another nice, deep, cleansing breath in, breathing in all the love and light that surrounds you. Allow you to just relax and allow you love in full wisdom. Universal spirit enlightens me. Universal power is me. I and all is well. And this inner healing, relax and open unity of your thinking hand and let my power greater than I am of me. Sensitive and receive every thought, feeling. I now by saying I we're working through. I personally respond to problems while being guided greater than my surrender the ego wisdom. Speak these words. No word that sustains all creation, as well as the support of all those around me. I allow myself to relax in the peace of fulfillment and gratitude and say, I release. I release. Now, in my mind's eye, I envision the presence of someone near and dear to me. This can be a friend, a family member, a teacher or mentor, someone who has touched my life in deep and loving ways. Someone who may not be physically present in the room with me this morning. I turn toward that image in my mind's eye and say, I'm grateful for the good in your life. Now I open my eyes, turn to the world around me, and joyfully speak to anyone physically present in the room or virtually on this broadcast, and share in confidence and gratitude in saying, I'm grateful for the good in your lives.
But no, he really was. So anyway, thank you very much for that, Brian. And we're in the middle of a series. It's nice to see all of you here today. Thank you for being here. And those of you who are watching online around the country, that's exciting too. We're in the middle of a series called 6 Ways from Sunday, which outgrew the 6 Sundays I had planned for it. So it's now more ways from Sunday. And it'll go on until it ends. And it's this particular series has insights in it drawn from the works of Francis Lord and W. Frederic Keeler, and you can read about who they were. These are some teachers of the past. She was a Christian Science teacher who went independent. He was a divine science teacher. And I've mentioned to you that I love the obscure. So I love to bring in obscure spiritual teachers that you all might not be that familiar with to see what they have to say. So today is about service. Today is about service. You got to serve somebody, Bob Dylan said when he went through a religious revival in his life, and he put that out there. We got to serve. So I was thinking about the different meanings of the word serve in the context of service, and often it comes across to people like you need more discipline. Everybody kind of sags under the weight of it. You got to serve somebody, and if you're not serving everyone, you're not serving enough. It can sound like it can feel like an exhausting kind of admonition to get out there and serve the world. So I thought of what's a lighter way that we could put it, but it's still accurate, that doesn't dumb the thing down, And I thought about tennis, or I thought about pickleball, which is what people my age are allegedly playing right now. But any kind of game like that, table tennis, volleyball, if you don't have service, you don't have a game. Somebody's got to serve. So when we say life is serving you or you're serving life, instead of it being this real heavy, obligated kind of thing that's going to empty your pockets and empty your energy, think of it as just sending into play something that's going to be responded to. And when you hear that the universe serves you, think of it as the universe putting into play something so that the game can proceed, so that you can go on with something. Life serves you things. I'm looking up in Frances Lord. What does she say about service? She says, life serves you information. She said, scripturally, this was called your daily bread. Scripturally, this was called your daily bread. Now, is that what Jesus had in mind if he said that in the Lord's Prayer? We don't know. But the daily bread that comes to us is not just to be eaten. It's not just a personal consumption of something. It's information that comes to you when you need it. You put out to the world that you have a vision for something you want to create in your life, and life serves you the information that you need for the moment. It never tells you the whole story, because the story is yours to write. It just gives you kind of a tagline to draw on. It gives you a hint. It gives you a hint as to which way to turn, as to whom to speak with, as to which option to select, as to where to go for what you need next, which might often be where you've looked before and didn't find it. We overlook things. There was a woman called me when I used to sit at a desk back in the old days, the way we did ministry. I sat at a desk with a phone on it and a Rolodex, and I waited for the phone to ring. We didn't have internet. We didn't have all this. And so one day the phone rang. It was upstairs here years and years ago when we were a small center, and the phone rang, and it startled me. And it was this person, and she was calling from out of town, and she said, I'd like a treatment, please. And that's what we call affirmative prayer. And I was all for it. And so, sure, what can I do for you? Well, she said I was laid off from my job. She was in the Midwest, like Indiana, I think. And she said I was laid off from my job and doing thus and such. And it's a small town and the economy's not great and so on. And so, I need work. And I said, okay, well, what is it you do? And what is it you'd like to do? And she told me, gave me some information. So I did a treatment. She said, thank you very much. And that was that. About a month later, she calls me up and she says, well, the treatment worked. I got the job. And how I got it was I waited. It's been a month. I went back to the place. It was a plant, a factory that laid her off. She said, I went back to the place that laid me off and they were hiring again. And nobody told me. And so I got basically my old job back, except they'd gotten some kind of infusion of capital, and so I'm getting a little more money out of it, Now, and she was really grateful, and I appreciated her gratitude, but I didn't do anything. All I did was speak the word, which is what I'd said I'd do. There were a couple of other agencies in play here that did the heavy lifting. One of them, the primary one, obviously being Spirit, the universal subjective in which we live that puts us together with what we want to do. And the other party that did a lot of the work was her, because she had to get past the doubt in her own mind Why would I go ask these people? they, you know, I used to, she could have been all filled with resentment and this bitterness. Why should I go knock on their door? But something in her said, hey, there's a light in the window. Let's go see. Let's go see what they have. So sometimes what comes to us as to what we are to pursue is something that we've already looked into and discarded. And we were the ones who discarded it. So we're the ones who can regain it, who can recapture it, and move on in a new direction. So I invite all of us to think of this daily bread business in this way. It's a useful thing. Something's going to tell me what I need to know. Something's going to tell me what I need to know, how to be a better person. She says it means, this is Francis Lord speaking, it means in a spiritual sense, give us just the information we need as we go along. May we have all our wits about us for the duty of the moment, all the love needed to satisfy people, all the memory to place us in the half-forgotten train of thought in which they still dwell. More on that in a minute. All the nerve, all the insight, all the will, all the self-command we need. That's a big ask, isn't it? That's a long list of stuff. She says we can claim this as our own in the spiritual sense. This is what life will serve us with. What she doesn't say is that life will give you bags of money. Okay. Wait, where is that again? Paging through all of the, where is this? It doesn't say that life will give you prestige. It doesn't say that life will give you unlimited power over other people. It doesn't say that life will give you immortality in the body that you currently wear. These are not promises that are made. What is said is that life will give you the information you need to be at your optimum self, so that if there are bags of money that are needed, you'll have the ideas for things to do to move them into your life and move them out of your life, because who just wants bags of money? I mean, think about it. We don't want money. This isn't really a prosperity talk today, but it could turn into one. We don't really want money. We want the stuff money will buy. Wait, we don't really want the stuff money will buy. We want the feelings we'll have when we've bought the stuff that money will buy. We want a sense of security. We want a sense of peacefulness. And we want a sense of enjoyment. If Brian wants to play the guitar, he ought to have one. Don't you think? Okay? And if he didn't have one and he couldn't afford one, you and I'd be the first people who throw some money in a hat to go get Brian a guitar. Because he ought to have one, because he's got something to say with it that's not complete to him, much less to us, if the only way he says it is verbally, right? Or he'd be an a cappella singer, which is fine too. But he's longing to accompany himself with something. So everybody ought to have their supply. Everybody ought to have their metaphorical guitar. They ought to have the mechanism needed in order to express themselves fully, because that's where the enjoyment is. That's where the fulfillment is. And that's where the service is, and everybody feels really good about it. Then it's like, yes, I can do this thing. Now, he might, or any of us might one day say, well, I'm tired of playing the guitar. A number of musicians, actually professional musicians, diverge off into other things. If you ask Joni Mitchell today what she sees as her great legacy, she'll tell you it's her artwork. She'll tell you it's her artwork, not her music. She's been awarded every possible award one can get for her music, but to her it's her painting that really is her defining art. Well, sometimes you diverge. You say, well, I'm tired of the guitar, I want something else, and something else presents itself to you. Then here's a palette of paints and an easel and a canvas and so on. You see what I'm saying? And so it's not about the acquisition of stuff. It's not about the acquisition of power. What is power? What kind of power do we want? We want power over ourselves. We want power over our own minds, I guess, our own intentions. We want to set a course and stay the course and be faithful. She speaks of this in here. Be faithful to the course. The course will change, and it will change you, but you don't ever give up on the thing entirely. You have the courage to be entirely who you are. Brian mentions that it's pride. I keep bringing Brian up here because he's sitting here, and often we do that because he's good-natured about it, and also sits on the front row. Brian mentioned it as Pride Month. Pride is about being fully who you are, regardless of what anybody else tells you you ought to be, regardless of how anybody else feels about it. Everybody's entitled to a feeling. Everybody gets their own daily bread. She says this in the material, too. It's really good. She says, your spiritual insight is not anybody else's spiritual insight. And often we want to make it that there's one spiritual insight, and it's, biblical, or this prophet said it, or it's here. It's thus it is written. Thus is it written. Thus is it written. And I've seen people do this with Ernest Holmes, too, and actually I've been one of them. I've been a doctrinaire religious scientist at various points in my life. Go through all here on page 362 in the Science of My textbook, he says this. But you know what? On page 366, he says something else. We've got a class we're right in the middle of on Monday nights, and in there in a book I created called The Essential Ernest Holmes, toward the front of the book, he makes a statement that the conscious mind is more powerful than the subconscious mind. It's more important than the subconscious mind and all of this. And I have it highlighted to discuss. And you go about 3 or 4 chapters later, and those of you in the class will encounter this tomorrow night, but you go 3 or 4 chapters later, and he says, the subconscious mind is more powerful than the conscious mind. It's really the most important thing. It's like, what? What happened here? Did he have a sudden epiphany of the minds have swapped places in importance? No. You got to look at the context in which he's speaking. He means that in this particular exercise, you focus on the conscious aspect of mind. In this particular exercise, you focus on the subconscious aspect of mind. But it's drawn as a bullet point kind of thing, out of context. So if you're trying to be all doctrinaire about it, you find the same thing in the Bible. It says one thing one place, and people get all worked up about the laws of Leviticus, which we don't follow. Nobody does that I know of, including the people who hew very closely to the biblical message, to the Hebrew Testament message. Nobody follows all the Levitical laws, but if they don't like what you're up to, they'll find one. They'll find and say, well, right here it says in this chapter, in this verse, and well, that's their daily bread. It's not yours. It's not yours, unless you want it to be. But in that case, it's still yours. It's your version of theirs, but it's yours. What you don't want in daily bread is a stale crust. What you don't want in daily bread is blue mold. Where I grew up, in an entirely different climate, I'm going to scold the climate. That always works. In an entirely different climate, we had things called bread boxes. You could buy bread, and you could put it in the bread box, and a week later, it would still be fine. Here, 10 minutes later, it's blue, it's got stuff growing out of it, it's right, so you got to keep it in the refrigerator, and then you got to pop it in the microwave for a few seconds, or you get the picture. Anyway, what you don't want is somebody else's stale crust, somebody else's leftover of spiritual wisdom, spiritual insight. You find your own, and then you find a tribe. Then you find a tribe, and I'll tell you, one of the people who I believe is watching online today, because they do every single week for years since we've gone online with this at the start of the pandemic. So that person knows who they are. As I say this, took a class with us online right at the start of the pandemic, lives in a different city, and says, I have found my tribe. I can't think of a greater compliment anybody could pay to this place and its people than to call us your tribe. Still, we're not all in lockstep on everything. Still, we have a range of opinion about how life works. But our baseline, our starting point, as we discussed last week, where she says everyone has the same starting point in metaphysical work, our starting point is oneness. Therefore, you belong. Therefore, you belong. All people belong in this system that we call life. And all people who choose to belong are welcome in the conversation of oneness. And really the only time that goes sideways or gets weird is when somebody looks at somebody else and says, well, I don't understand you, or you're different or something, and so you don't belong here. Well, that's not their problem, the person that one might be saying this to. It's one's own stuff, isn't it? It's one's own unhealed heart. It's one's own. Why go to the trouble, man? Why go to the trouble to single out other people for ridicule and separation? I do not understand this. Okay? And I'm not coming across as some kind of goody two-shoes who, like, their whole life has been this spiritual being who, da-da-da. No. I mean, I can be snarky. I can be sarcastic. I can have opinions. There's people I don't like. Not currently, and none of you, but I'm just saying, Really, I mean, I've been in a fist fight or two when I was a kid, and all of this sort of stuff, and I mean, so I'm not like, I didn't swoop down out of a cloud to say all this kind of stuff, but man, the trouble that people go to make each other wrong. Whereas that energy, that heat could be so easily converted to light. That energy could so easily be transmuted into something of a healing and growing and empowering nature. And also, you learn so much. From people who are not like you, you learn more than you do from people who are. Think about it. And that's why when we have a tribe, like I feel we do, a community, that we don't seal the place up and just live here with each other and peer suspiciously out the blinds, at what might be going on outside. But it's about being alive and out there in the world, in the assumption that everybody baseline wants the same thing. Everybody wants happiness, and everybody wants wholeness and fulfillment, and so on. Okay? So it's just really a lot easier to drop the drama of separation that is manufactured, and that also runs counter to evolution. Things that run counter to evolution get run over. They get trampled. They just do. Things that run, because evolution doesn't stop for a wrong opinion. Evolution doesn't, oh, wait, you're not okay with this? Fine, we'll back off. That's not how evolution works. Evolution, growth, progress, whatever you want to call it, it just keeps rolling like the tide. It just keeps moving right along. And evolution is driven by love. It's driven, Teilhard de Chardin, who was quite a character, a scientist, a priest, and a metaphysician, said that driven by the forces of love, the fragments of the world seek each other so that the world might come into being. Driven by the forces of love, the fragments of the world seek each other so that the world might come into being. Isn't that a beautiful thought? The fragments of the world all seek each other. It reminds me of a sign I've told you about I saw years ago driving on the other side of town at one of these church message boards out on a lonely highway, and I almost ran up on the curb when I saw this one, because it just moved me instantly. It said, God can heal a broken heart, but you must bring him all the pieces. Isn't that nice? That's a little theological in this, and he's not a hymn necessarily, but you must bring it all. And I thought that's spiritual psychology. That's absolutely spiritual psychology. That I got to sweep into a pile all the pieces of my broken heart, for this to mend. So it's like, if I don't like people, who didn't like me? Who made me wrong? When was I bullied? When was I moved around? When did I feel neglected and abandoned and so on? And that's what I've got to work on within myself. If something is blocking my free acceptance of everyone just as they are in this life. Now, I'm not meaning to lecture everybody on how you ought to behave, but, oh, wait, yes, I am. Because that's what you asked me to do week in, week out. So just try this and say to Spirit, okay, I'm ready to receive my daily bread with the understanding I'm going to have to eat it. I'm going to have to consume it, and when I do, it's going to turn into energy. Ernest Holmes, let me give you a little sidebar here. Ernest Holmes made a television program briefly in the late 1950s, one episode of which remains, has been recorded. Some of you have seen it. We played it in our classes here on VHS tape, and then later it got moved to, newer media and stuff. Well, lately it's been cleaned up by a film editor, a pro. Lisa put a copy of it on our Facebook page, and there's a link to that also in our weekly email. If you've never seen Ernest Holmes, the founder of this teaching, which you won't have if you're not, pretty old and lived in L.A., then you see him here. You see this man move and talk and deliver a talk. And anyway, it's delightful and it's well worth watching. Why I'm telling you about it is that in there, I don't know if they asked you to be on TV, give a talk, how would you prepare? What would you bring into it? Big elevated thoughts, You know what he talks about in there? A ham sandwich. A ham sandwich. It's not the only thing he says, but he says it's like a ham sandwich. Life is like a ham. You eat the ham sandwich, and it converts itself into blood and muscle and bone and tissue and so on. And this is how, right? And this is how life works. And that enables you to have energy and get up and do things, accomplish things, so on. Well, that's our daily bread with a slice of meat between them, but you ask for your daily bread, and it turns into muscle and sinew and tendon. Spiritual daily bread turns into spiritual muscle and sinew and tendon. It turns into the spiritual power to stay the course, to know the truth, to look at a condition, to look at an unwanted condition and see the truth behind it. To look, as Ernest Holmes put it, a discordant fact in the face. Not at its shoes, where we're all kind of hangdog, and not averting our glance. Look it in the face. Look at discordant fact in the face. Look racism or homophobia or war right in the face, okay? And see the truth behind it, and see that what is motivating this, who is prompting this, is in a lot of pain. And I can do something about this silently, without them ever knowing, without them ever feeling moved around. By my spiritual values, I can have a knowing of wholeness and wellness for this person that will stick. Oh, they can bat it away, but it's going to keep coming back. Why? Because it's in accord with evolution, with spiritual evolution. Whether you like it or not, whether anybody likes it or not, the spiritual evolution of the human species is toward the recognition of oneness, period. And there's nothing I or anyone else can do about it. I don't want to do anything else about it. I like that idea, but that's just me. That's just me personally. I think it's a fine thing. And so I have no desire to derail it. But to anyone who does, it's not going to happen. Love will win. Love will win. Love always wins. Why? Because love built all of this. Love made this earth, peopled it with living things. Love stepped up, did what it needed to do. So I can fall in line with it, or I can try to resist it. And if I try to resist it very gently and easily, it will push me to the floor. And then I will pick myself up and say, whoa, what was that happened, and dust myself off. And, well, that's how we learn. That's how we grow. And you don't need me to tell you this, because we all know it. We all know it. When has resentment worked? When has regret gotten anybody what they wanted? When has hate or fear ever made a better life for the person who's holding them? Show me the evidence. Show me where this has been the case. And I still won't believe it. I'll still say, because sometimes we do this, we'll say, oh, well, this person over here, they have a gazillion dollars, and they fly around the world in private planes, and they live in a castle, and they're a miserable person because they made all their money off the backs of other people and doing terrible things. And so therefore spiritual law doesn't work, or they wouldn't be like that. And I'll reply, with no more information than you might have about it, and I certainly don't, I'll reply that person sitting inside that castle is miserable. They're miserable. They can't sleep. They have tortured dreams. They're sick in body and mind. How could they not be? How could they not be if that's truly who they are? Or else the person who's bringing me this information has just made it all up because nobody deserves to live in a castle because they don't have one. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes we do this too, and we throw rocks at people and we say, oh, how did they get to be so famous? How did they get to be so this? Well, because they put in the work. They put in the work and they refuse to not be heard, and off you go, you know? So what I encourage us all to do, especially in the week to come, so we push it out much longer than that. It collides with other assignments we have to do different things for me and everyone else, you know. But I'm joining you in this. Let's know this week our daily bread. Let's know this week that we get the information we need to be exactly who we are in the fullness of the moment. Like Brian said in the song, you know, the now. This is the moment that we manage. This is the moment that we control right now. Right now, we have the information that we need about ourselves, each other, and about life to do what needs to be done, which is to advance the cause of love. So let's know together now there is one life, one power, one presence, pure spirit, everywhere manifesting, everywhere radiant and beautiful and whole. It's easy to feel this. It's also familiar to feel this. Something in us remembers this from a time before we had overanalyzed and overscripted and over-rehearsed about life. Something in us remembers. That little child, that consciousness of sweet naivete, openness, receptivity, trust, and wonder. It is to that self that we turn now. In affirming these words into the consciousness of today, into the grown-up mind, that we are safe, whole, complete, loving and loved, that there is nothing to need, hide from, or fear. We stand in the midst of limitless opportunities, surrounded by amazing godlings who support us and are supported by us in a beautiful community of life. For this knowing and for its manifestation in form in and through each of us, I am so deeply grateful. I release this word now into the infinite, calling it done. And so it is.
That information is included in your weekly email. Hopefully everyone is getting the weekly email. If you are not and you are online, check the chat. We do have a sign up, the constant contact link. Sign up that you can go in and sign directly there. If you're in the room and you're not getting it, we have a book in the back in the vestibule. All you need to do is write your name and your email address, and we will make sure you are on there. If you have previously signed up and you are not receiving it, make sure you check your spam or junk folder, because this is an email that goes to everyone. Sometimes it gets captured by those. So make sure you do that. And also, every single day, 365 days a year, 7 days a week, all day, every day, not all day, but every day, for about 20 minutes. Yeah, about 20-ish minutes or so. We have Reverend Lisa Ryan in the mornings, and we have Reverend David Dewhurst in the evenings that are on Facebook. They do their daily readings. So if you need a little daily bread in your life, that's a nice little nibble right there. That'll definitely help you out and make sure that, you know, you have what you need spiritually. So if you have not done so already, please check them out. And also, you know, like, follow, share, subscribe. We're on Facebook. We are on YouTube. Thank you, Reverend Lisa, for making sure YouTube is, like, up really quickly. Yeah, it'll be up today or tomorrow, this talk. And we're also on Instagram, and we have a little presence on TikTok. So we're around. We're around. And I see our lovely little ushers in the back. Before they start passing out and collecting, I would like to ask, is there anyone here for the first time? Please raise your hand. Welcome. Thank you for being here. We appreciate it. We hope to definitely see you again. Please make sure you go across the garden area to the bookstore after service. We'll have a little something for you when you go over there. So please go over there, check out the bookstore. And Monica, you're going to be in there, right? So Monica will give you a little treat from us. And for everyone else, thank you for being back. We love to see your smiling faces, and that includes you online. Thank you for being here. We want to thank you for your presence. Thank you for your love. Thank you for your energy. Thank you for your monetary donations. Thank you for all the support that you give to us. It's because of you and what you give to us that we can be here for you. And if you could not tell by today, we absolutely love being here for you. So thank you. And I invite you all to say with me now, divine love through me blesses and multiplies all the good I am and have, all the good I give and receive. I am prosperous now, and so it is.
Okay. Now, the way the lights are very bright today. Like, I can't see you guys. Jesse talked a lot about the daily bread today, and I'm sure every one of us has at one time or another thought about why the daily bread? But that's pretty much all the thought we've given it. It's like, why bread, right? Well, if you buy the book, Courage, Conviction, and Consciousness, one of the ladies in there did give it some serious thought. Why daily bread? Why bread? Okay, why do we say our daily bread? Well, because 2,000 years ago, that was the closest that they could come to spiritual food. It was, what's the mental equivalent for spiritual food? Well, if you don't get your bread every day, the body dies, right? So what is our spiritual food? What is the spiritual thing that we need every day to keep our spirit, and I'm not going to say alive, but hopping and happy and engaged? That's why we still, 2,000 years later, still use daily bread. And I was like, and I wish I could remember who the author was, but I don't remember. She was just in the last couple of days, though, so somewhere in either the beginning of June or late May. And I just thought that was really interesting, daily bread. So where are you getting your daily bread, as Jesse asked? What is feeding your spirit? What is feeding your soul? What do you do every day that sets your soul on fire? And if you are not doing something every day that sets your soul on fire, let me encourage you to find something that sets your soul on fire. So I'm going to invite you into that space today. So come with me into that soul fire and know that there is one life, one presence, one power, one love. And each and every one of us live that life. We are the vessel of that presence. We are the channel of that love. We are the channel of that power. And so as we walk out into this week, I know that the information that you are seeking is seeking you. That you veritably trip over it. That which sets your soul on fire reaches up and grabs you in such a way that you cannot ignore it. And as you set your soul on fire, that passion that ignites you ignites those closest to you. and the soul fire spreads into a world that works for everyone. Give us this day our daily bread. Set our souls on fire that we may change the world. Because each and every one of us has the power to do that. And I know this. And I know this. And I am grateful to know this. I am grateful to have found my tribe. I am grateful for a community, for a teaching that teaches me who I am and teaches me who you are and teaches us who we are and what we can do together. And I am grateful for this place. I am grateful for our ministers. I am grateful for our musicians. I am grateful for our practitioners. I am grateful for each and every one of you. And I am grateful for the thunderstorms that set our souls on fire. And I relax and release and know that it is done in law and love. And so it is.
Say with me now, something wonderful is happening through me.
Something wonderful is happening through me.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my mind.
I feel it in my mind.
I feel it in everything I am.
I feel it in everything I am.
I choose it.
I choose it.
I trust it.
I trust it.
I use it.
I use
And
it.
I love it.
And I love it.
And so it is.
And so it is.